By speaking to experts, I realized that actually our children's spaces really help shape the way they think, the way they feel, the way they behave. And I really looked at my space differently and realized actually it's not serving me well. This is not supporting me on an emotional level.
We're joined by two women who work in the space in very different but deeply connected ways. Reem Shakarchi is the founder of Wallpaper Kids, a design brand rooted in her experience of motherhood and a deep curiosity about how children emotionally experience space. Salam Shaban is the founder of The Tidy Mess and a professional decluttering and organization expert certified in Marie Kondo's philosophy. Today we're exploring how decluttering, design, and color affect how regulated we feel and how to create spaces that support real life. Do you personally, both of you in your lives, choose what to keep versus what to get rid of?
When I touch something, I get a feeling. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize how often that feeling is actually a negative one. So
why is it so hard to let go of things?
Each item holds its own story for you, and that's why it becomes really hard to get rid of it. And sometimes the solution is to just...
This episode is brought to you by Aqua Aligner. If you've been thinking about straightening your teeth but don't love the idea of metal braces, well, this is your sign. Aqua Aligner offers nearly invisible, custom clear aligners designed for comfort, confidence, and real-life wear. It's modern orthodontics, precise, discreet, and built around your lifestyle. Because sometimes the smallest shifts create the biggest confidence. Visit aquaaligners.com to learn more and use code BNB10 for 10% off your treatment. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Balanced Not Boring. I'm Judy Daghestani, founder of Loris Organics, joined by Tamara, Khoury, founder of Teal Bakehouse, and together we're your hosts. Today's episode came from a simple realization. We're not just overwhelmed by our lives, we're overwhelmed by our spaces. Our homes are holding on to more than ever. When space becomes overloaded, our nervous system really feels it. Today, we're exploring how decluttering, design, and color affect how regulated we feel and how to create spaces that support real life. We'll talk about why certain spaces feel draining, how small design and decluttering shifts can change how you feel, and how to create homes that support regulation and not pressure. To explore this from both a design and decluttering lens, we're joined by two women who work in the space in very different but deeply connected ways. Reem Shakarchi is the founder of Wallpaper Kids, a design brand rooted in her experience of motherhood and a deep curiosity about how children emotionally experience space. As a mother of two boys, Reem began noticing how color, pattern, and visual rhythm impact children's mood, focus, imagination, and even sleep. Her work blends design psychology, child development, and subtle feng shui principles to create environments that feel playful yet really calming, expressive without being overstimulating too. For Reem, design isn't decoration. It's about emotional safety, energy flow, and nervous system support. Salam Shaban is the founder of The Tidy Mess and a professional decluttering and organization expert certified in Marie Kondo's philosophy, adapted for real, lived-in family homes. Her work goes far beyond tidying. Salam helps people understand why they hold on to her things, how clutter carries emotional and energetic weight, how often objects represent unresolved decisions, guilt, fear, and identity. Through her work, Salam supports people in letting go of what no longer serves them, not to create perfection, but to create clarity, lightness, and mental space. So we're very excited to have you both on our first panel ever.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, we're excited. Thank you.
So to get started, we'll start with Salam first. How did you both get into what you're doing today?
How I got into what I'm doing. Well, first of all, I thought everyone was the same as me. I thought everyone was like this. I thought everyone had this like want to be tidy and to be, to have a certain, and then I realized that no, people actually aren't like that. And they started pointing it out. And that's when I was like, okay, well, if this is something I have, I want to start bringing it and showing it to other people.
Was it something that came to you naturally?
Yes, it did come to me naturally. Obviously, the practice of it helped me understand it more, and, learning about it helped me understand it more, but it is definitely something I was born with.
That's amazing. How do you feel like you've helped people, organize their homes, or did you influence them in ways that you didn't necessarily know?
I definitely feel I influence people in ways I didn't know, because Dubai is kind of a small community at the end of the day. So when I go places, I just always hear like, oh my gosh, I take so many tips from you. So I know that for sure I'm influencing people without realizing. But then when I actually would go into the people's houses and go into their space and then their feedback and then seeing seeing them like 2-3 years later saying the system still work. That's when I know like, okay, whatever I do does, help people feel more connected or more comfortable in their homes.
You make it, you do it in practical ways. I mean, one of the things you posted once was about slippers, about how you can offer slippers to people so they take off their shoes, and like just functional ways that like make people feel comfortable in your own home without being rude about it,
100%. And then, it's so interesting. We had a really big party last week with like 60 people and everyone was like, I'm not taking off my shoes.
Yeah, they know.
But how often are you going to have this big party? So, it's not a big deal. Everyone came in with their shoes. Everyone had fun and, we didn't make anyone feel uncomfortable. And then you just clean the next day. But it's like that day to day, if you have a really close friend that comes by every day or, close family members, it's okay to be like, let's be comfortable. Let's put on slippers and let's just feel really relaxed. So I feel like it's a good balance.
Yeah. Balance, not boring. Every time a guest says it, we have to do that. So Reem, how about you? How did you get into the Wallpaper Kids?
So I was really inspired by my husband, who's an artist. And honestly, the idea came about after he painted a mural in my eldest son's bedroom and playroom at the time. And what he was able to do was basically encapsulate all of my son's interests at the time, the stories that he was reading, and create his own story on the wall. And, it obviously looked beautiful. We were wowed by these incredible murals. But what I picked up on was the impact it had on Zach, on my son, because he was so in awe. And for the first time, I felt like he realized who I am matters, like my opinions matter, my interests matter. And he was so proud of this painting that his dad had created for him. And I really picked up on that and even kind of boosted his self-esteem, and when he'd have friends over, he was so proud and excited to show them this beautiful mural in his space. And I wanted to research this a little bit further. And then by speaking to experts, I realized that actually tailoring your child's space around them, putting them in the heart of the design sort of process is so conducive for your child. Our children's spaces really help shape the way they think, the way they feel, the way they behave. Just like for adults, actually, for us too. Our environments are so important in shaping how we feel. And then obviously I wanted to research this further and further and spoke to all the experts, the child psychologists, the color psychologists, the sleep therapists, the sensory experts. They come with a whole wealth of insight that we're really sort of unaware of in our day to day. And I wanted to apply all of that to the Wallpaper Kids. So creating wallpapers that not only look beautiful, but are also conducive for our children in terms of their sleeping, their learning, and their playing.
It's amazing. And this can be applied to the whole house. Tell us about how you think about it, even for yourself and your husband.
So it's really interesting. I picked up on it after becoming a mother, because I think prior to that, I sort of saw everything with an aesthetic lens. So things that looked beautiful or pretty. And then after becoming a mother, it was more like how these spaces making me feel. How is my home making me feel right now in a time of exhaustion, of overwhelm, of overstimulation? And I really looked at my space differently and realized actually it's not serving me well. This is not supporting me on an emotional level right now.
Were you always like this though? And it kind of triggered after motherhood?
It's interesting because I'm such a lover of color and pattern. I mean, I love wallpapers and I love pretty florals, and usually I'm dressed in very bright colors. But it was very interesting. I just think being a mother changes so much, and you really do start to see your world in a different light. So I think this was actually something that came about more so after becoming a mother and just, and then running a business and just the daily overwhelm. We were just speaking about this earlier. I'm starting to forget things. I just feel like there's just so much going on in our minds. And I'm realizing there's a lot that our brains need to process on a daily basis. So if our surroundings aren't calming and are too overstimulating, that then translates into things like fatigue, overwhelm, forgetfulness. So it's so weird how everything kind of came around and full circle and everything's kind of intertwined.
Have you noticed with your children, since you changed their wallpaper, obviously based on their tastes and colors and all of that, have they had a change in temperament, at least when waking up or going to bed? Is there a direct relation?
Yeah. So for me, really, when it comes down to children, especially with my younger one, it's really about emotional safety. it's quite daunting. Bedtime is daunting for every child, especially a child that sleeps in their own room, like alone. So my boys have separate rooms. My older one loves that. He loves his independence. He loves having his space. My younger one really struggles. He always wants to sleep with, his brother. But, we created that divide for several different reasons. So with Jude, it's really about emotional safety. And the wallpapers, because at the time he was obsessed with trains and dinosaurs. So it's a beautiful dino train mural. And it's interesting. I think when I first put it up for him, I thought, in 2 years, he's going to be over this. I often get that with my clients, but 1 week it's fairies, the next it's princesses. Judy was one of them. So Jude, I always use the example of Jude. Jude's wallpaper, we put it up when he was about 2.5, 3 years old. And honestly, I thought by 4 or 5, he's going to be over it. He's almost 6 now. And I asked him the other day, I'm like, Jude, is it time to change your wallpaper up? And he's like, no, but I love my wallpaper, because he's built an emotional connection to it. Children build emotional connections with their spaces. It's not just a dinosaur train. It's the memories he's built up over the years. It's what he's known for all of those years. And this is why I say it's all about creating a safe haven for your child to come back to, and they're subjected to so much noise that we weren't necessarily subjected to as children, the screens, the devices, the constant overwhelm. So to create these kind of nurturing environments where our children can almost come back to themselves, remember like who they are as people, can be, incredibly conducive for our children, especially in times at nighttime when you're saying goodnight to them and you're closing, the door and the lights go down. And that's why we have to be so mindful of the imagery as well going into our children's spaces, because having a massive T-Rex on the wall.
Yeah. It's not very
so
lullaby vibes,
in the daytime, oh, look, it's such a cool dinosaur. But at nighttime, when the lights go down and your child's perception changes from standing to now lying down, suddenly, especially the early toddler years where their minds are going, their imaginations are running wild, especially at nighttime. Oh my God, is that T-Rex going to come and eat me in my sleep? This is how children think. And that's why we have to be so mindful of the imagery as well. So we like to keep our animals small. So the dino train our dinosaurs are this big. And each carriage is telling a story as well. So it's about storytelling more so than particular themes.
I love that. And how about you in your personal life with color? So obviously you do a lot of organization in the home, which we'll get into. But how do you find color also applies? Like, how do you integrate it so that you don't feel overstimulated in your designs and at home?
I definitely like to stick to neutral colors. And then when I do introduce colors, they're always soft colors. And I don't like to have like one specific color that's overpowering the space. Like, we're going to go with blue or we're going to go with green. And I think just having that overall neutral, soft, I like the pastels. I feel like it really keeps and I love the color green. It reminds me of nature. So I don't see it so much as a color. I see it more as like a neutral. At clients' homes, we see all sorts of colors, but definitely in my space, it's more neutrals.
How do you deal with a client that perhaps really loves bright colors?
I don't have any issue with colors at all. I feel like as long as they're happy in their space and they're comfortable, I'm not an interior designer. It's more about where their items are and how their items are serving them and what system they have in their own house. Like when they're getting ready or when they're washing dishes or when they're using the kitchen for their house and for their space to make sense. That's what I focus on for others.
I know we know that you're Marie Kondo-certified.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I think one thing that I really loved was how when she would meet her clients, she would also just take a few seconds to actually feel the energy of the house and connect with the house. And I think that goes a long way in how you're going to help a person and how you're going to, introduce a system. So I think that was really interesting.
Do you believe that objects hold energy?
100%. I believe objects hold energy, and I believe that you need to create space. You need to create space so that energy can flow easily throughout your home. So if, you've got like bookshelves and things and clothes and racks and, just stuff all over the place, there's no more room for that energy to move. So absolutely.
It's a fine line though. Obviously, like there's things that you're attached to just because of nostalgia or memorable items that you don't want to get rid of, but you know there's no functional purpose. So how do you personally, both of you in your lives, choose what to keep versus what to get rid of?
Well, I definitely, when I touch something, I get a feeling, you know, and I feel like a lot of people don't realize sometimes how often that feeling is actually a negative one. So it really needs to be something that gives me such a great feeling for me to really want to hold on to and save. And I'm not going to lie, I do have a box of memories, you know, but it's when I look at it every single time, I really do feel connected and I do smile. You know, there's a fine line between, you know, just saying this is a memory because you don't want to deal with, you know, letting go of it versus actually keeping it and wanting to have it forever.
How about you, Reem?
Yeah, I love doing my bi-monthly edits, call it in the house. So it's really just sifting through things and really thinking about, you know, well, what am I really holding on to here? I think when it comes to our children, we're a bit more sentimental. Sometimes it's really difficult to let go, especially if, you know, you're not going to have any more children and it's time to say goodbye to the crib and, you know, but I feel like I make peace with it. You know, I have a little ritual and I say, this is amazing and you served your time well, but now it's time to get rid of you and I need to make space for new things. I'm trying to teach my kids that as well. You know, they're hoarding onto all of these toys. Like it's, you know, I'm just like a new toy comes in, one toy has to come out. And I find it really therapeutic. And funnily enough, I think they feel it too. But yeah, and we love giving. I think giving to charity is also such a lovely concept to also instill in your children. You know, it's not just going in the trash, you know, this is going to go to make a new home now. And I use that same way of thinking with my own things, with my clothes, with
I think that's actually really relevant to today. I mean, we just closed off on the Year of the Snake, if you guys know, where it's like about shedding old things. So getting rid of what doesn't serve you. And we're going to enter the Year of the Horse now in mid-Feb. And now Ramadan's coming up. So it's such a nice timing now to think about what isn't serving you, from friends to jobs to products to whatever. And let's go into a new year fresh, because I also feel if there's so much around me that isn't serving me, I can't let the new manifestations or hopes and dreams in. So it's not only the home, this can apply to real life, right?
Yeah. And I think also once you go through the exercise, because it's not about, you know, it's amazing to always give to charity, but it's also, you have to be responsible. So you really need to think before you buy this item. And I think once you go through this exercise of like, oh my goodness, look at how much stuff went to waste, or look at how much money I've wasted, you really learn to buy better.
How can we go through this exercise? I'm one personally that I throw things a lot. So I'm on the other end of the spectrum and I'm trying to have a balance, because sometimes I throw things out and I was like, now I need it. Because you talk a lot about holding on to things and feeling this emotion, and there's an emotional attachment or not. Can you explain just a little bit more, like a simple exercise of when I hold a mug, for example, where's the emotional attachment or lack thereof?
I think when it comes to practical things like a mug, it's not so much emotional unless, you know, it's a souvenir, but just practical. Like, you know, do I have a full set? Is this going to work if I have, you know, 10 people over? And then kind of how long am I willing to use this for? You know, if you like the mug, it's quite simple. You know, if it's, you know, like a basic set, you're going to want to keep for a longer time. But if it's just random pieces, that's where you find yourself kind of getting rid of, because we like things to come full circle. And I think that's really important when you buy things that are going to last longer and serve you longer, be like complete sets. So I think that's besides like the emotional, just practical side of it.
So you have to think actively when you're about to buy something. Am I going to actually use this? How many number do I need? Not just to buy something like if it's on a promo.
Store it.
Yes, storage is a problem here.
Space for this. I think that's so important to understand, like, where is this going to go? And is it going to be worth that, you know, cabinet space or that counter space that we're going to give up?
I think it's a very, very hard to do when you're in a rush. So all of us are moms with young children. So we're at the store, we're rushing, whatever. Your kid sees something they like. How do you choose to let them get what they want just because they're so excited about it, but you know it's just going to add another clutter to their already full tub of stuffed animals? So what is both of yours perspective on getting something because it's cute versus do we really need it when it comes to your children's things?
I think they feel the hesitation from my end.
We've trained them well.
Yes.
I think they feel that. No, when my kids were way younger, we definitely did overconsume.
Yeah.
I do have a age gap, and I feel like with my youngest now, he doesn't have nearly as many toys as my older kids had. And I think just when they constantly feel like there's a place for everything and their rooms have, everything set, they kind of do it naturally. I have one son that nothing comes in and nothing goes out. Like it's just this. But then I have my daughter that will every so often, I'll find like a little bag at her door with like just a few things. And then she'll buy like a couple of things for her room. She'll be like, I don't need these, but I got those instead. And for me,
dream child, you've trained her well, clearly. That's great. It depends on the kid.
They really pick up on it when you're over consuming, they're going to over consume. And when you think about things, they're also going to think like, okay, do we need this? They start asking themselves the questions.
That's actually great to teach them at a young age. It applies to real life as 100%. Well. How about you? You have 2 boys, so there's a lot of stuff.
It's actually good having the same gender because things actually do get passed down from one to the other. But then I found myself buying 2 of the same thing. And that just really started to grate on my nerves because they don't want to share the same toy. So we would get them 2 identical things. I think it really comes to teaching, like talking to them. Is this something we need? You have a very similar one at home. Is that one broken? Is there something wrong with it? Is it not working? Is that why you want a new one? So it's really having those conversations. And I know sometimes it's frustrating to be in the middle of a supermarket and have to have those conversations with your child. So maybe it's just a matter of it's something you could put on your wish list, for example, and we can talk, and then we talk about it later. We have a conversation, at nighttime about, again, you really wanted this toy. And so I think it's just continuing that dialogue and teaching your children about the importance of money. Money doesn't just grow on trees. This is all money that we spend. Mommy and daddy work hard, and it's really instilling. My husband's great at this. I'm terrible at it, but my husband's really great. And Zach has a savings account now, so when he gets money for birthdays and special occasions, he's actually learned to save now, which is great. Whereas before he would want to spend everything straight away. So it's teaching them these concepts from a young age, I think, are really important.
And then another thing, I think it's really important to let them have the phases. Like, kids go through phases like the princess phase and the dinosaur phase and the car phase, and your child will show you that this is, what they're interested in right now. And I really allow those phases. Like if he has a superhero phase and he wants to buy all the superheroes, I let him have that phase. But I think it's really important for the parents too, because I really feel it's so easy to be like, oh, but my child wants it. And we don't realize how much we want to buy it for the child. And that's, I feel, when things get out of hand because the parents are like, oh, you know what? I really want to buy them this basketball thing and this football thing, something for outside. The weather is, too hot now. So we're going to buy some stuff for it. And that's when things, but if you really listen to what phase your child is in, they don't ask for that much.
And you don't need it all at the same time. Yes. We're probably living our nostalgia.
Yeah, we want them to have all these things. But if you just listen, and then let them have, what they want, I think it works for both.
Do you look at your house as a sacred space? How do you view your house after a long day out and it's so stimulating and traffic and the news and everything? When you come home, what is your immediate feeling?
This is where I need to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel, so you have, is it a safe presence and energy? And I'd love to know both of your thoughts to pick your brain on how you got your house to be that way. Because if you think about it, there are nuances in the background that you have to go through to make your home a sacred space. So can you summarize what you think, like 1 or 2 things that really made your home safe for you?
So it all really changed after becoming a mother and, running my own business. And I think what's interesting is that houses used to serve as a space of, rest and where you would wind down or you would eat. Now they are our offices. They are our gyms. They are our schools. Oh my God, we had to educate our kids in COVID at home. They are, as well as social spaces. And I don't think houses are designed in mind with sort of our current day-to-day and our current reality, like the way we're living. And it's interesting because when you see all the new builds and houses that are being built, they're actually smaller than they used to be. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. Our houses are now having to serve so many different functions, yet our spaces are getting smaller. And I think this is resulting to a lot of overwhelm. So now you literally have your living, your dining, and your kitchen all in one space. And that in itself is really overwhelming. And, if you have your helper in the kitchen cooking in an open plan kitchen, this can get tiring. And there's just a lot that your brain has to like comprehend and continuously process. So when it came to our space, I wanted to breathe. Like I remember saying to Maz, I feel like I can't breathe in this house anymore. It just got to the point where I felt claustrophobic. There was just too much clutter. Oh my God, we had toys downstairs in the living room. There was just no divide. And when you've put your kids to bed and you're sitting down on the sofa and there's toys are still staring at you, it's just the last thing you want to see. You really want to disconnect from, your heavy, overwhelming day. So we stripped back, and I created clear divides. So that's when I looked at the landing spaces. Okay, this is going to be your playroom now. The shared toys are in the landing and your own toys are in your bedrooms, but they're not necessarily like in open kind of storage bins. No, I converted their cupboards into shelves. We bought those beautiful clear boxes. I've labeled everything. So now they know that when it's time to play, they either go individually to their own rooms or they play in the landing where they have their shared toys. So everything we have zones. I think zones are really important. This is where we work. And something with kids' rooms, especially, as kids are also multifunctional places. Kids are sleeping in their bedrooms, but they're also playing and they're also learning. They're doing their homework as well. So again, how can we create a space that has those clear kind of boundaries or zones so a child knows when it's time to sleep or when it's time to learn or when it's time to play.
And each zone might need different color schemes, right? Because you want one energizing for, let's say, studying, and then, or actually no, would you want calming for studying? So this actually matters what colors and patterns you choose.
Absolutely.
In terms of the Wallpaper Kids, how do you feel that in terms of the house, and you mentioned they're becoming smaller and they're serving as multi-purpose rooms, how can wallpaper in general add that extra effect? Just so people out there can understand like the importance of wallpaper and how it adds to the room and the energy as well.
That's a very good question. And I think, I work with a lot of designers that are actually specialized in children's spaces. And it's really interesting to see how they take up wallpaper designs and adapt it to certain spaces. A lovely example is a playroom that has, let's say, a boy and a girl, a sister and a brother playing at the same time. One daughter wants it super girly. The son wants it super boyish. So again, creating zones within that space. So creating beautiful arches and having wallpapers on there. So there's an arch for him and an arch for her. But we customize it in a way where the color palettes still work harmoniously. So one has cars and one has fairies, but we've done it in a way where they share at least a similar color palette. So it still feels harmonious. But again, it's about zoning and creating those separate places for children to just be themselves and play with the toys that they want to play with, and then also come and unite. For children's bedrooms, we're very, very mindful of the wallpapers going in there because, essentially a bedroom is a space for rest, to unwind, to sleep. So these wallpapers have to be conducive for that. So we're very mindful of color palettes, definitely muted pastels. We stay away from sort of over-saturated or highly saturated colors. We're not big fans of sort of black and white, sort of very sharp contrast, because they can actually be quite jarring. Overly sort of geometric designs. And also when you're looking at the space, a child's bedroom might be really, really small. So maybe a soft, subtle pattern works really well. But for really larger walls where you have like 5-6 meters worth of wall, overwhelming that with a pattern is too much. So we always suggest a mural where you're telling a story and there's a scene. And again, that helps a parent also divide by, okay, this is going to be the section for the bed, and this is going to be the section where they're going to play. This is where the desks are going. So it's really working. I mean, it kind of all feeds into the other. But this is where I think designers really come in, designers who understand how to design a child space conducively for all of their separate, activities. And
to be honest, I mean, when you're saying neutrals and pastels, I'm thinking of us, like I'm noticing the trends of adults wanting to go to neutral, soft, and you were saying beige tones. I know you love the beiges I've seen, but basically I'm finding it for me personally, I'm gearing towards minimalism because I think I'm so stimulated with the outside world and how much as a mom we have and entrepreneurs and all of this, like, it's just, you want to come down to like a very soft, calming space. So do you think subconsciously why you gear towards this in your own home? Because I know that you naturally like neutrals. So what's your psychology behind that personally? Why do you choose this route?
Because it's calm.
Yeah.
Because it's calm and it makes you feel good when you come back to that space. And just for everything to have like a place, you know, without noise.
Yes. I mean, you're great with showing how you put towels in the right place and hide your slippers and put all your clothes correctly by color order and all these organization tips. So for our listeners, if someone's overwhelmed and they have clutter everywhere, and we all do, how can they start step by step to feel like they can breathe in their own home?
I think the first thing they need to do is not focus on that end result. You know, like it doesn't matter how your stuff is in the closet, if it's labeled or color coded. Like for me, these are such unnecessary rules when it comes to organizing your space. It's more of like the decluttering and keeping what you need. If they're able to do that, everything is going to fall into place. And that's when they're going to start looking at like the more decorative side of things of, okay, now I'm going to buy like that really nice couch that's going to make me feel good. I think people get overwhelmed when they think like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I can't have, you know, like all color coded pants and shirt, but that's not really important. It doesn't matter, you know, if your pinks are with your blues, it's just to really have, I guess, some kind of category, like at least, you know, shirts, pants, tops. And then when you look at them one by one, okay, what shirts am I keeping? What pants am I keeping? You know, are my pajamas all serving me well? You know, are they ripped? You know, and that's when, if you look at it really practically, it'll all come together.
There's times where our pajamas are comfortable, but they're stretched out, like, or you just need to get rid of them, you know? Yeah. It's like that you need to make the conscious.
Pajamas are so emotional, like, because they give you this level of comfort that you're worried other pajamas are not.
Yeah.
So that's very emotional.
House clothes are the best.
Yeah, house clothes.
Why is it so hard to let go of things? This is partially a personal question.
I think our stuff holds energy and it holds guilt and it holds like so many thoughts come to mind. And you know, am I wasting money? This was a gift from someone that I really care about. You know, each item holds its own story for you. And that's why it becomes really hard to get rid of it. And sometimes the solution is to just shove it somewhere and not think about it. But really, if you give yourself that chance to actually, you know, say like, okay, this was a gift from, you know, someone that I really care about, but I already shared that moment with that person. When they gifted it to me and, you know, made me feel appreciated and loved, that's when we shared this moment. So if I get rid of it, it's not gonna, you know, affect my relationship with this person. And then the guilt, like, okay, I did buy this. It was expensive, but next time I'm going to be more conscious of whatever, you know, if you kind of talk yourself through it, you won't feel as bad.
When you look at a house, do you look at the house as in all of it to be functional, every closet to be functional, whether it's the kitchen or the bedroom? Or can it be one closet or one room for storage? Or is storage not particularly a great concept?
Okay, I think everyone deserves a small dumping space.
Yes. Okay, good. Good to know. Good to know.
You know, it's like, is that bad feng shui is basically what we want to know, because we need it.
A place where you can just have things. I know I have like this room where we put things until they're dealt with, you know, and everyone like needs that.
And that later.
Well, yeah, it's just there.
It's just, but then you also need to know what's there.
Yeah.
And actually take the time to deal with it before it becomes overwhelming and too much.
So I'm having an issue and I want to pick your brain on this. My office room has become partly storage, partly gym, partly office, because I'm hiding from the kids don't go in this room. Like they don't need to. So all the birthday gifts we have coming up, so they don't open the gifts. I'm hiding them in my office. This is not good energy and not good feng shui, I'm assuming, because how can I work and focus on my work when I have all these other categories? So what would be your first line of advice for me? Like I need to find separation, I'm assuming.
I feel like you can still use that room for many things, but then
it's a woman cave.
Yeah, woman cave. But then when it comes to like the gifts, I mean, how often are you going to have those gifts there?
Unfortunately, every weekend we have like 1 to 2 birthdays. You know how it is with kids. So I'm always figuring out where can I just hide them, and it always ends up this one chair in the corner of the office. And that's the gift chair.
But it ends up, but the gift goes, right?
Yeah, every week like we clear, but then we refill. Yeah.
Then a new invite comes in.
So I think other moms listening might have the same thing. It's like they want to have their adult space because I do feel sometimes claustrophobic that every part of the house has become somehow a kid's space as well, even though that there are portions that should be functional, but somehow the kids take the toy and put it in the other room, you know? So I like to have boundaries for my brain to also feel like I know where everything is. And like, this room is for the kids vibe. This room should be calming and serious. So I'm thinking the house for me personally reflects what my brain should be feeling, but it's not always the case. And that's the disconnect I'm having.
Yeah.
And it's not realistic.
I think the gifts are, it's okay if you have a space where, you know, you have these moving parts. And then when it comes to like this, I think the thing you would really want to look at is the storage and how much gym equipment you have and how much you're actually using and how often you're using this gym. And if it's really worth to mix your gym with your office. You know, I think that's where, that's what you would really want to look into.
Question for you both, because you know, you both have husbands, partners. What if one of you is a hoarder and one of you is really easy, like Tamara, and removing things? How do you functionally work together? Because someone might not be letting you throw away the things, right? So is there a happy medium?
I think every person is responsible for their own things. And I don't think it's fair for anyone to get rid of something that doesn't belong to them. You know, like it's not fair to be like, oh, well, I like to declutter, so I'm just going to get rid of your shirts while you're at the office.
Reem's like, I just did that the other day.
Do your husbands hold on to like band t-shirts, like from back in the day, like gigs they used to go to?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, these have holes the size of like,
yes, or pajamas.
And he will not let me throw them away.
But then you need to find like a basket for this memorabilia.
So he has
the basket, the box.
Yeah.
She likes like containers.
Like just put it somewhere where it's not in your face.
And it's like out of sight, out of mind for me, which is a good thing until he like brings them out and decides to like, you know, sleep in them. I'm like, no, please.
You can look at them, but don't touch, basically.
But please don't.
Yeah.
But we have like a memory box now from like when we first dated and, you know, there are just things we don't want to let go of. But we did a massive edit not too long ago. And we decided, we actually looked at everything individually together and said, okay, should we keep this or throw this away? And we just kept a few things and the majority of it sort of.
Is spring cleaning a thing we should follow where it's once a year? Or is that just like an old myth where it can be any time of the year or twice a year? Like what's your methodologies around it?
Anytime I'm feeling, it's really interesting. Like when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I've just got too much going on and I need to kind of take control. It's usually my household. So that's when I'll go into like full spring cleaning mode where I'll do a massive edit. And it's just a great way of kind of lifting that weight and breathing again. And also it makes you ready and prepared for like, okay, now I can start. Now I can pick up all of the things that I've been like pushing aside or, putting on hold. So I think anytime.
But I do believe once you do it, like once and for all, and you've created that system, you don't have to do it as often. And when you do it, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes. Like once you do it, you shouldn't, be like, oh, I need a full week of cleaning and decluttering. And no, like it needs to be like my
ongoing.
Son had his birthday beginning of January. That's when like last week I was like, you know what? Got a lot of new toys. Let's see where we're going to fit these. And that was it. It took literally like a couple of hours and it was done versus because if you deal with it often, you don't waste time later. So no spring cleaning, no take out the carpets.
That's intimidating alone of like, oh, once a year I need this huge 1 week cleanup.
Nobody has that time or energy
You'll
to
never
put
find
in,
that time.
We don't have that time anymore. You want to be able to have that time to do things like, I don't know, go walk on the beach or meditate or, that's where I feel like I want my house to be set and done so that my mind is clear there. So then I can focus on things that really make me feel better.
Same for me. Yeah. I think the more we have clutter, the more we can't focus on other things. And it's a cycle. So it's like at least have your sacred home space where you start and end your day to be organized and clean as much as possible, realistically, obviously. And then you feel like you can move through your life
100%.
more fluidly. Yeah. So we're going to name a habit or an object and tell us whether you'd keep it, release it, or rethink it. You can explain it or one word, it's up to you. Tell us your logic behind it because this is stuff that's really practical for all of our listeners. Okay, Tamara, you want to start?
Okay. Overflowing storage bins.
Storage bins that you love, these containers.
Like
overflowing.
The bins
they're overflowing with stuff.
Yeah, what would you do? Release.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so basically dump. Just in case items like the maybe piles.
Release.
Ooh.
Rethink.
Okay, interesting. Kids artwork everywhere.
How much artwork are we talking?
So that's actually, we need to do an elaboration on this one because I currently have all of my daughter's, like nursery pictures and these milestones that they made. They're really good art, some of them, and I don't want to get rid of all, but like I bought these frames and I want to put them up in the playroom. So how would you do that in a way that doesn't ruin the color vibes, the pattern vibes, and also the feng shui of the room?
No, it's absolutely fine. You want a child's space to feel like theirs. So putting up their artwork is incredible.
So you're a pro this.
He's very heavy into drawing and very into his art. And we have his canvases up on the wall, but in his space. And, he has it's like a dedicated wall.
Okay, so dedicating a space.
Gallery.
Yes. Yeah. Would you do the same in a nice way?
I wouldn't put them up on the wall.
Yeah. See? There's differing opinions.
Own space. Unless
their own space. Not they're not sitting in my living room.
You're like,
but in his bedroom.
But I definitely do keep a lot of the artwork that comes in because they're not going to draw these little things forever. And it's just so sweet. I do keep it. But if it's just like, I need to see the effort. If I see effort.
There's a judgment process.
This is where the edit comes in.
Yeah.
When you do it, really know that can go. This one can stay.
So you just pick and choose what within that because there's some nostalgia or meaning to it, of course.
And they each have a box. Each that has a box. So any really nice piece of artwork will go into that box.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
What about Pinterest perfect homes?
Isn't that what we're all trying to?
Do we keep like a mood board? Do we
like a mood board?
Yeah, it's like how Pinterest has like different options where you save. Do you think it's good to have that, or do you think people should just operate on their own accord and their own energy?
The latter. It's really, for me, it's about how a space makes you feel. Doesn't necessarily need to be picture perfect. If it's bringing you that calm, and it's not a one size fits all. We're sitting here saying we love muted colors, and I love earth tones, and for other people, it's dopamine decorating. They feed off color, they feel off pattern, maximalist, dopamine, not quite sure what the proper term is, but it's not a one size. It's really about how a space makes.
I didn't know there was maximalism. Just FYI. It's good to know.
I would think eclectic. That's another word. But anyways, yes, there's no one size fits all. I think it's what someone needs from their home. Do they want to feel energized? Are they always feeling
100%?
Yeah. Or the opposite. Like for me, it's definitely I'd like to be calm in the home now. Yeah. Depends on phase of life. That can also change.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was.
And how about hand-me-downs? So things you get, for your kids from your sister, let's say, or whatever it is.
These can be really special.
Yeah.
These can be so special.
That's a hard one, huh?
Yeah.
Depends on maybe what it is.
Well, if you're going to use it and you need it, for sure. But then if someone hands you something that you're not going to use, you can say, actually, I don't need that. Thank you so much for thinking of me. But sometimes, like recently over Christmas, I was handed over from a cousin, like all of their Christmas clothing, like, the sweaters. My son wore one sweater every day for a whole week. And it was so special. And I got to share photos with the person. So I thought it was, and we repurposed it and, we got them from Beirut. He's wearing them in Dubai. So it was, but if it's something that we're not going to use, you need to just say, I'm not your dumping space.
Yes. I think they don't want to get rid of it really.
Yeah,
so they felt like they were being functional with it. But then I actually had the same thing where a family member gave us a lot of dolls and whatever. I love them. They're so cute. But then Sophia's done with that as well. So, okay, but I actually ended up donating those, for them. So in a way, it's like, I guess a hand-me-down process, but whoever ends up benefiting, as long as they're in good condition, it feels great.
It's amazing.
Yeah. How about sentimental clutter? So this is what we were talking about. Like if you would either keep it, release it, or rethink it. If it's sentimental, obviously.
If it's sentimental, I'm keeping it.
Keeping.
A clean space isn't about having less of a life or less love. It's about creating room for clarity, energy, and the version of yourself you're stepping into now. In a world that feels increasingly loud and overstimulating, caring for our spaces is a form of nervous system care. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
This was so cool. Nice little panel we had. It's different for us,
absolutely.
But I love having two angles because you're different, but you can complement each other.
100%.
You need nice colors. You need good decluttering programs.
Wallpaper.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have offline chats. Yeah.
And so for our listeners, where can they find you guys?
You can find me on Instagram. That's where I share most of the tips and all the tricks. tidymess_DXB.
Great. And Reem?
So you can find our wallpapers on our website, www.thewallpaperkids.com. We also have an Instagram page and you can message me directly. And we also have a library of existing designs, and also we create pure custom bespoke designs as well.
This is great.
That's amazing.
I love this. I hope the moms in the audience, or just not even moms, but people who really care about having a safe, sacred home, good energy, I hope they benefited from this. Color, pattern, and decluttering together is so important. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
and if
you.
this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify.